All right, let's get right into it. We're looking at this huge legal battle, a real showdown between a global investment giant, Tiger Global, and the Indian government. And really, it all comes down to a deceptively simple question that has a billion-dollar answer. Who gets to tax the massive profits from one of the biggest tech deals in India's history?
And this is the number that kicked the whole thing off. Just look at that. Almost 1.9 billion US dollars. That is the incredible amount of money that just one of Tiger Global's funds made when it cashed out its shares in Flipkart to Walmart back in 2018. I mean, that's just a colossal return on their investment.
So here's the crucial question. Even though that huge profit was tied directly to an Indian success story, how much tax do they actually pay in India? Well, that's what this entire multi-billion-dollar fight is all about, because Tiger Global's argument was it should be zero. Now, you're probably wondering, how is that even possible? How can you make almost $2 billion and argue for zero tax? Well, the answer lies in this very famous financial highway for investing in India, something people in the business call the Mauritius Route. And it's all built around one very specific legal agreement. That agreement is called a DTAA, a Double Taxation Avoidance Agreement. Now, these treaties are pretty common, but the one between India and Mauritius, it was special. For decades, it basically said that the right to tax any capital gains belonged to Mauritius. And the catch? Mauritius had a domestic capital gains tax of zero. So you can see exactly why it became the most popular route for foreign money to flow into India. And this timeline, it really shows you how that golden highway got paved and then eventually kind of closed off. The treaty gets signed way back in '82. Then you get these super important circulars in '94 and 2000 that basically gave investors a giant green light. They confirmed that if you had a Mauritius Tax Residency Certificate, that was pretty much all you needed to get the tax benefits. Then, in 2016, the rules changed. India said, okay, we're going to start taxing these gains on any investments made after April 1st, 2017. But, and this is the multi-billion-dollar detail, all investments made before that date were grandfathered. They were safely protected by the old zero tax rules. So you'd think, since Tiger Global's investment was grandfathered, it's an open and shut case, right? Well, India's revenue department saw things very, very differently. To them, this wasn't just legitimate tax planning. They believed it was a shell game, cleverly designed to avoid paying taxes altogether. So the tax authorities, they mapped out this whole structure that they believed proved their point. They argued, look, the real control, the brain of the operation, is Mr. Charles P. Coleman in the USA. From there, the money flows through some entities in the Cayman Islands, then into what they called letterbox companies in Mauritius, which then invested in Flipkart, a company based in Singapore whose value was almost entirely derived from its operations in, you guessed it, India. And the Authority for Advanced Rulings, or the AAR, they sided with the government on this one. Their finding was pretty blunt. They said the head and brain of these companies wasn't in Mauritius at all. It was, without a doubt, located squarely in the USA. So to kind of sum up the government's case, right? They claimed the Mauritius companies were just empty shells, see-through entities that had no real business substance. They'd argued that the parent company in the US was pulling all the strings and that this whole setup was a pre-planned scheme specifically designed to dodge Indian taxes. But Tiger Global came back with a really powerful defense. They basically said, hey, we were just following the law exactly as it was written. They argued they were fully protected by the very same treaty that India had signed and proudly upheld for decades. And their rebuttal was really point for point. First, they said, we have a valid tax residency certificate from Mauritius, and for years, that was all the proof anyone needed. Second, our companies in Mauritius aren't empty shells. They have offices, they have employees, they hold board meetings there. Third, and this is key, our investment was made before the 2017 deadline, so it is legally grandfathered. And finally, they made the point that using a treaty to your advantage, something called treaty shopping, isn't illegal. It's just smart tax planning. And this point right here, it was the knockout punch in the lower court. The Delhi High Court actually agreed with Tiger Global. They ruled that the Tax Residency Certificate, the TRC, is sacrosanct. They said it creates a legal presumption of residency that tax authorities can't just decide to ignore or look behind. So what you have is a complete deadlock. The AAR sides with the tax department, saying the whole thing was designed for tax avoidance. Then the Delhi High Court comes in and completely disagrees, siding with Tiger Global and throwing out the AAR's order. It's a perfect legal stalemate.
So with the score tied at 1-1, the case has been escalated. It's now landed in the highest court in the land, the Supreme Court of India. They're going to make the final, binding decision that will settle this thing once and for all.
And the Supreme Court now has to answer this one fundamental question. Can the Indian government pierce the corporate veil? Can it look behind a valid tax residency certificate to question the substance of an investment, especially an investment that was legally protected or grandfathered under the old rules? And the answer to that question goes way beyond just Tiger Global. The outcome of this one single case is going to have massive, massive implications for how global businesses and investors view India as a place to put their money. It really all boils down to this one provocative question. Where do you draw the line? At what point does using a country's own laws and treaties to your financial advantage cross over from being legitimate, smart tax planning into being an illegal, abusive tax avoidance scheme? The Supreme Court's final word, whatever it is, won't just be about Tiger Global's $1.9 billion. It's going to set the definitive rules of the game. It will create either certainty or a whole lot of uncertainty for billions and billions of dollars in past and future foreign investment in one of the world's fastest growing economies. It is truly a billion-dollar question.